I know teachers right now are into their 40s who are still paying college loans off.
The people that aren't in education complain about what we're not doing in education. You're like, all right, so the people that are doing cool stuff, you almost have borderline a moral obligation to say, all right, this is what I'm doing then.
Let me ask you a very quick question. Is it easier to get a passport than it is to substitute teach?
Yep. Like, be lazy. Well, if I'm training people to be teachers, be lazy. Yeah, shut up and let them do it.
There's two emotions that I straddle, right? Is hope and worry. So I'm worried to death about kids, but I'm super hopeful about the future.
Education wants the instant gratification. They want the weeds. They don't want the trees.
CTE is coming gangbusters for the traditional, practitioners who don't want to even entertain moving things around for the sake of efficacy.
Do we need as much time as we need to do school?
I mean, if you're asking a 14-year-old, they're going to tell you a weekend will be fine. But no, I want to challenge kids.
If you're about to listen to this podcast, buckle up.
You're listening to the Disrupt Education Podcast. Here are your hosts, Peter Hostrawser and Alli Dahl.
Welcome to the Disrupt Education Podcast. Peter Hostrawser. I'm here with Alli Dahl. Alli, what's up?
So two things. One, I think I said, I don't know, on a recent episode that I have chickens and been raising them since they were chicks. And this week, when we're recording this, got my first eggs, which is really cool. But the other thing is the guests we have this week. Okay, so my grandparents lived in Rockford, Illinois, and so I've had to drive from Minnesota to Rockford, Illinois many, many times in my life. And so I've driven through Beloit, Wisconsin, plenty of times. And so I was like, I've even seen it like grow over the years as I've gone like through that interchange and section right at the Wisconsin, Illinois border so many times. And it's like really grown. And they just had a bunch of construction like not that long ago in like the Janesville, Beloit area. And it's incredible to see. But I like, oh, I can't wait to hear from our guests because that area is exploding and then disrupting education as well that I had no idea about. And I'm like, I feel like it's close to home.
Yeah, absolutely. I met this guest at the Unlearning Pathways Conference up in the Dells, the Wisconsin Dells. And actually, a couple of our other guests on this series, Scott Carr and Christy Valesky, we actually worked together that. And we have Jeff Stenroos here, who is the director of everything in the School of Beloit. Jeff, thank you so much for jumping in on the conversation with us today.
Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
So obviously, we were talking and just kind of set the stage here. Jeff was sharing with me just a whole, I was like, hold on, say that again. Wait, we've got to get all this stuff recorded because I'm doing some amazing work in the Beloit area. And I was like, wait, people need to hear about this. And I think that our listeners can definitely learn a few things from you. But before we jump into that, Jeff, kind of give a quick overview of who you are and your newer, longer title, the director of lots.
Yeah. Jeff Stenroos, and I was the director of CTE and alternative education, now the director of secondary education, including CTE and alternative education. So I've been at Beloit for 4 years. I'm originally from northern Wisconsin, way up Michigan, Wisconsin, Lake Superior border. So I'm on the opposite end on a state line now where I work. But started my 5th year at School District of Beloit, my 31st year of education. I've been an athletic director, been a math science teacher, been a 7-12 principal, middle school principal, taught 5th grade reading, writing, humanities. Again, as I told you, Peter, jack of all trades. I hope I'm a master of a few.
I love that. I love that. Where do you want to begin, Alli? You got to ask him some questions because he's a builder.
I know. I want to know, the program, just kind of like for our listeners who aren't familiar with the work that Beloit is doing in the school district that you're teaching in, and kind of like, a 10,000 foot overview of, how is what you're doing disrupting education? Like, you have these academies, and, like the traditional model of high school doesn't seem to be where your district is going. So I just want to know, like, what would you kind of share to kind of get our listeners to know, like, what is Beloit doing differently?
Sure. So when I came along, first of all, I'm going to give credit. I work with an amazing team. I'm at the district. I'm on the really dark side, Allie. I'm sorry to say that. I'm on the really dark side, not building administration. I'm on district administration. But as I tell all of my people, and I work with my teachers, I work with them. I have a title, I have a position, but I work with everybody, and I work very closely. So we do have an academy model. We are aligned with the Ford Next Generation Learning, Ford NGL system. That's our academies. That was already in place when I got there, and that work had been done prior to. I came at the COVID year when they just reopened kind of at the end of the school year, but that was already in place. And part of my roles was to help and support the academies from the district level, but I wasn't really out in front. And it was kind of nice because I had to get my bearings of the school district and what was going on. And our superintendent came along, new superintendent, and said, we need a little bit more push with this. And I had been to a couple of academy visits, and I'm like, if you're going to put me out front, there are a few things that need to happen. The wheels on the car were spinning, but the car wasn't going anyplace. I'm like, I need that car to hit the ground, and it needs to move forward. If you're going to ask me, I'm going to tell you, here's a few things that need to happen. And some of them were scheduling. We're looking at something I've already gotten a little bit of pushback on from staff is co-location of teachers in the building. So we're no longer by departments, but we're by academies. So what we have with the academy structure is there are really 4 academies total. Freshman has its own academy. And what happens is when they come in the freshman academy, they take a course called freshman seminar. We do a lot of career exposure, interest inventories, doing some exploration about career skills. They call them whatever the soft skills, life skills, all those pieces. And then we want them to select one of our 3 main academies for their sophomore through senior year. And again, it's based upon their interest and their direction. Now, our academies are set up. We have PACMEs, acronyms for everything. It's public safety, architecture, construction, manufacturing, engineering, and science. It's kind of my old traditional shop classes for the most part, with some engineering. We have Hess Academy, which is health, human services, education with that, and then Bach, which is business, art, communications, and hospitality. So we have 3 main academies that we have. And we want them to pick that. And then our academies, we have pathways. When I first got there were 45, 48 different pathways, which Allie, I just look at your face like, yeah, that's a lot. They started by hiring a career academy coach my first year that I was there as well. And so the career academy coach and I worked really closely, and she did most of the work. I said, I know when I have good people around me and I support them and I let them, I don't get in their way. Went from 44, 45 academies down to 14. And our academies have 3 courses that are associated with pathway. So if you're familiar with the regional career pathways in the state of Wisconsin, they all have, you have to have a sequence of courses that go along. We have that in all 14 of our pathways. And that's sort of what we look at. So we have things that are, high science level. We have things that are hospitality level. We have educational pathways, but we have things, that you think of traditional shop classes. Like we have welding 1, 2, and 3, we have auto mechanics. And so we have them in a sequence for all of these. Now, it was academies sort of by name. You sort of picked them, but you didn't really know what you were doing. And it was that coalescence of, all right, these are the 14 pathways we really have. And they're tied to what our industry and our local areas are telling us, where there's a job, a credential, there's some sort of connection. We don't want you to just take a class to take a class. What does it lead to? And that's really where we go to. So we've sort of been evolving with that. And some of our experiences, we have things called guaranteed experiences. Every freshman has the freshman seminar, they do career inventory. They go to, we have a college kind of exposure fair here. 10th grade, we have a mock interview. Every one of our 10th graders goes through a mock interview, and the mock interview is with outside business partners that come in and conduct it. We run it through our English classes, but we have outside business partners, and our YMCA really kind of coordinates that. The junior year, we have, we're now putting in college visits to this. We're something new. I'm going to support visits to every one of our UW 4-year systems and a couple of local ones, except for UW Superior and River Falls, which are really long drives for us. But we have that. And then we also have a portfolio that they do. So this has sort of been growing and building over the 4 years, but it's really been sort of a push to say, how do we focus in on? Some of them are college bound. Some of them are, technical diploma. Some are, you're going to earn the credentials and credits in our classes in high school, get those certifications. You're going to go right to a job. Or you're going to go right to the military. I think last year we had 14 13, 14 kids in welding class go into welding in the military. Yeah. And so I said, I have great people, but I help try to push this. Say, okay, if we're going to do this, let's be intentional about it. The old model didn't necessarily work. Somebody decided that before me. We have the Academy model, and the Academy model has involved our whole community in coming up with our strategic plan. We have a portrait of a graduate that was done by 80, 90, 100 people. It wasn't done just by the school district. It was done by our community. And so, and then we've reached out to our community and said, what are your partners? What do you need? How can we help get our kids to that level? And again, it may not be what they do for a career, but these are some of the skills that are going to go out and help them as they move forward. And now that, again, we've got it going, this car needs to have some traction. We need to start it pushing. So this year we've changed the schedule at the high school. We've gone to an AB block schedule. We've had a block schedule, but it was an every day. We're doing AB for the first time this year. Yeah, when you move the cheese on educators, you change things around. There's a lot of concern, but the reason is it's better for the teaching and learning. The teachers actually have meetings in their academies, and that's really what we want them to know. And the academies really should be small schools within a school is kind of the focus of it.
Love this. Like I said, Alli, we were having a conversation at this conference, and I'm like, whoa, we've got to like ramp this thing up. So I kind of want to come down into, okay, I think the first thing is, number one, kudos to you for being, I don't think it's a dark side. I think you're the light dark side, because as a whole district admin who is really looking at systems and not just communicating it out, that's huge. That's huge. There's been many, many studies on change and how it happens. And I think traditionally, a lot of the failures in districts that happen is just because it becomes just a poster on the wall and people communicate it and say, rah, rah. But there's no look at the systems that are in place and how do we start to change that. You mentioned like school day, you mentioned how you changed up the academies and these different things, and you have your freshmen, your exposures, your mock interviews going down, and then diving deep. So for our listeners, for me, I'm just like, yes, let's jump in, because that's what I do, right? And I feel like that's what you do as well. Which is unique, and please teach administrative college somewhere after you're done with this. I wanted to start with so you got local industries to come in. Like, what was that like? Did that happen while you were there? Was that before? Was it a yes and? Because I think that's a great place to start with your community and say, let's have a real conversation and do it in front of everybody. You can't just be in a dark room over here and say, this is what our community is saying. No, let's put it in front of the teachers. Let's put it in front of the kids. Let's get that out there. So if you don't mind, kind of unpacking that.
Sure. So when I got there, some of that outreach was already done, and they were working on the portrait of a graduate and, kind of our Academy strategic plan. And that involved, like I said, 80, 90, 100 people. There was a lot of people and a lot of community members. We had a big group of teachers. We had parents. We had probably 15, 17 students that were a part of this. So that was sort of the structure of laying the groundwork and where we want to go with this. But then it's sort of, all right, how do we connect the school to the business people? They were there in the theory of it, and here's what we want to do. How do you get it so that it's actionable? And so it was the career academy coach who was there starting, first of all, Deb Prouse, who was there. She went ahead and started doing an outreach, and we started talking to partners and saying, here's where our academy structure is. We want to tie these to credentials. We want to tie them to work skills. We want to tie them to youth apprenticeship pieces. What do you have for us? What can you bring along? It kind of came along. I'm wearing a T-shirt that says Craftsman with Character. And I'm not sure if you look up the Craftsman with Character program, it started in Edgerton, Wisconsin, which is about 20 miles north of Beloit. And it was one man, and he realized that his shop workers were aging and he wasn't replacing them with younger kids. How do you teach them? So he started a program called Craftsman with Character that worked with just Edgerton High School and just his business. And they came 4 days a week and shadowed somebody. And then the fifth day they met for a couple hours, and that's where they had classes. And they talked about, what are your experiences? What do you learn? He put out scenarios of, here are workers that did some things that maybe didn't turn out so well. And so it was a program like that. And he presented, and Deb was at it, and a couple of our business partners. And there was a connection saying, how do we do this? How can we do this in the school district of Beloit? And we heard about this in April, And we pulled it off and started it in September. And we got 12 kids that were a part of this first Craftsman with Character. Well, part of that is we found Frito-Lay Company in Beloit and Scott Forge, who are two leading manufacturers and they're like, we want to jump on and we want to help you with this. They found some other willing partners. And so we started this sort of we call this a pre-apprenticeship program. Mm-hmm. So for the first semester, we get these 12 kids Monday through Thursday. They go to a job site and they're split up to 6 different job sites. And then on Friday, they go to Frito-Lay, that's our host organization, and they have their classes and they talk about this character. And, you are important, you are valued. You are also not the most important person in the world. They talk about all those pieces. And then from that, Frito-Lay also opened up some of our youth apprenticeship. And so those companies started, and they were sort of a model for other companies to say, oh, wait, if you can do this, maybe we can do it. And part of my job is we belong to what's called the Greater Beloit Economic Development Corporation, the Education Committee, and that's made of member schools in the Greater Beloit area, but also member from the Economic Development Corporation companies. And so it started a push, and they started to get going a little bit more. And we brought them in, guest speakers. Can we come out and take a tour? Oh, you got kids that are doing this youth apprenticeship, or this small, they come for 2 weeks at your place, and then the next kid replaces them. They come for 2 weeks. Now we want them to come for a year and work as a youth apprentice. Other businesses started to see that. And then our academy model, one of the pieces that we had, and we built it last year finally, was we have an advisory committee for each academy. And so we bring those people in and say, here's what we have, this is what's going on. What do you need from us? Again, and we host an expo. Our expo, big presentation, we bring in about 70 to 80 companies that come into our gymnasium and show we put them by academy, and they bring in all sorts of things and talk to our kids and our families, because our families don't even know what the academies are necessarily. So it's really just been getting that word out. But it's just sort of grown. Like I said, it started in infancy. It started from a few core places, and us just asking, and we ask for time and talent. We don't ask for money. Time and talent is what we're after. And sometimes, hey, we have an extra donation. We have the Craftsman with Character program. Our local community college, Black Hawk Tech College, which is 6 miles up the road, they're part of this Craftsman with Character in our programming too. They provided a bus for us. The companies picked up the bill for it because they realized this was so important. And those actions by our community partners spoke volumes to other community partners. And that you're like, oh, you can do that? How do we get involved? How do we get involved? And so it's now starting to go where we have these people starting to come and ask us, which is what we want. And again, we're there to say, it's not necessarily a pipeline to your work, but it could be. We have a few of those kids who you start with this program, you turn into a YA. They're like, yeah, we like you. We'll sign you on. We'll have you at a registered apprenticeship with the college. We'll pay you to go to college one day a week and come here and work the other days. So it has grown to that sort of piece, but it's snowballed. It's not where we want it yet, but we have seen a lot of momentum in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
That is so encouraging for our listeners to hear, because the snowball effect and partnering with local partnerships and seeing it grow. Like, I'm just picturing this like expo, and like a school hosting an expo with like 70 businesses like that. Right. I have never heard of a thing. And that's like, I'm thinking of, so the Minnesota State Fair is like one of my favorite events to go to, or like if I'm running a marathon race, they have an expo, or like the Minnesota State Fair has all these expo buildings, and like all these local businesses are like, some people go to the state fair just to shop, right? And get deals there. Like, you have a big community event, and people like want to know, well, what are the businesses in the community? And that you're literally bringing the community to the school, which is something Peter and I talk about on the podcast all the time. And so that's awesome. And I mean, I'm sure it's part of like, it has to be one of the reasons why Beloit as a community is a growing community. Because this program started, from what I understand, like in 2018, and has evolved, and now you've been there for 4 years with it. So it's like, 8 years. We've heard from many people this year who have started programs between 2015 and 2018, and they're now like flourishing, but they started with like 1 or 2 things, and they're just like growing it. So that's really cool. I'm curious how, like, traditional teachers, how do they fit into this, right? Like, do you still have your core classes for kids? And what do the lessons look like? I did read, you sent us a really awesome article, which I know we'll link in the show notes, that really gives an overview of the program and stuff you do. But it talks about teachers having opportunities to go and do like workshops and visit community partners and stuff, but to bring back to the classroom. But like, what is that looking like now? Are kids still taking algebra? Are they taking English 101? Are they taking US history? And then like, is everything that you're doing in the academies tie into this, or does it?
Yeah, great question. So Alli, I'm going to tell you, I'm an educator. Educators can be a little bit stubborn and stuck in their ways after they've been doing things for a while. But it was, our academy coach, Deb, who I had before, and our academy coach I have now, Brian, they're both local Beloiters. They've been teaching. They graduated from Beloit School. They've been here. They were also one to say, you know what, we've been doing the same thing for a number of years and not a lot has changed. We need to do something different to change, to move the needle. And so what we've done is it happened before I got there, but more so since I've got there, we have funded and sent people to academy visits. So we've gone to Nashville. I've gone to Akron. A couple of years ago, I funded a bus, a bunch of teachers to go down. Last year, I sent 4 others to get them to go so they can see what it looks like someplace. It's one of those things that we tell kids, if you don't see it, how can you imagine yourself doing it? And so that's why, I'm a very big proponent on experiences for our kids. Well, the same thing happens to the adults. And so a couple of adults went there and like, okay, we've heard about this. You've been telling us. We've sort of been doing it in name. Now we saw it in action. Okay, we realize what this is. And so part of my plan is to keep sending a group of 4 to 6 teachers every year to these. It's a costly thing, but it's sort of been that way. And now what we do is we still have all the core classes. Our graduation requirements haven't changed. And so what happens is our teachers, say our math department, if we have a math department that's eight teachers, we have more than that, but just say 2 of those math teachers are part of the Freshman Academy, 2 are part of the Bach Academy, 2 are part of the Hess Academy, 2 are part of the Packneys Academy. They still go through what their core standards are, but what we want to do is we want them to try to find those interdisciplinary connections that make this work. So you can cross something over. Last year, that was one of our focuses. Again, I'm not at the high school, but I talk about this as ours because I am a part of them and the students that are there. I mean, I really try to embody. Peter, I appreciate you said I'm the lighter dark side. I am the dark side, but I really am engaged with them. But that our students and our teachers went through training last year about interdisciplinary work. We brought people from the Ford NGL, the Nashville hub to do some, professional learning for us. And again, it doesn't mean that, you have to teach math and welding side by side all the time. It might be 85% of math content is still 85% of the math content. And that's the same across all academies. But if 15% can be through the lens of that academy, we're looking at, I need to look at what manufacturing tolerances are. So all my math measurements need to be thousandths of an inch, 10,000ths of an inch. I need to take a look. I'm looking at speeds and RPMs of something. That might be different than if it's a hospitality class. Where else do you see thirds? A third of a cup in cooking class. You don't see thirds hardly anything else. But that's an important math skill. So if they can find those connections, again, so they still take those core courses. It's just we want them to pick a pathway, pick an academy, pick a pathway, and focus in on 3 courses. So it's possible for a kid to take, 3. They could take 3 hospitality classes, and they could take 3 automotive classes, and we're okay with that. We just want them to pick one and focus in on that one. But if they want to augment it with something else, that's certainly all right. But they still are required to take the same math, same social studies, same English. We just want to try to focus it through the lens of that. Now, Alli, that leads to my next step is we now have math hallway and a science hallway and an English hallway. I don't want that. I don't think we can have that. What we need to do is we need to co-locate, and that's the word, by academy, so that the math teachers are just down the hall from those other pathway teachers. They're just down the hall from the medical science people, so that if the math something can relate, or the socialists can relate to the medical science, they can. If the social studies can relate to the business department, they're right down the hallway. They don't have to go seeking them out someplace else. Now, we've had to guarantee time for the math department to meet and the social studies department to meet, but we also want that academy to meet so that they're having those conversations of how do I write for something, or what do I need to do for a welding class? My welding teacher last year, I went in one of his classes, he had a periodic table. He was in the kitchen, one of our kitchens, teaching welding class, because he was talking about how elements mix, and he was using foods, kind of make it fun, but he was talking about porosity, how porous something is. with a periodic table in welding class. Those are the connections that we're looking for. But again, so we haven't watered anything down. We've just tried to give focus to the learning instead of saying, well, I came out and I learned, I took all these classes. Well, what skills, what dual credit, what credentials, where you're going to, what's your next step? I don't know. I graduated as a diploma. That's not good. We need to have some sort of a focus. And again, we're not locking kids in at 16 years old what they're going to do for the rest of their life. But we want them to have some intentionality about what they do. And that's kind of where that academy system is and where we want to go to it. And say we're there with some of the things of scheduling, the pathways. Co-location is my next battle for next year. So Peter, when you talk about disrupt education, I've already heard on the first couple of days back this year that are we really doing this next year? I'm like, if I get the decision, we are doing it next year. But I also don't live in that building. So I have to be cognizant of building administration, the teachers there. How does it look like? But there's good rationale for it, and it creates a better learning environment specifically for those academies. So that's the direction I want to go. But I'm one of those, as Peter said, I look for the now, but what does it look like in 3 years, 5 years down the road? I want academies to just be the way that it is at Beloit when I retire.
Yeah. And again, please teach admin, but let's go there, right? Like, so how do we start to see not all places are already setting themselves up for, I would say, success. And if anybody has, I'm going to give a shout out to Jason Van Nuss here with the Vantage point, because he's talking about, how we use words and how do we say things as a, career in college or college and career, like careers and afterthought and all this. So it's a great, I just wanted to throw that out there. But I also wanted to ask you, Jeff, then, I feel like if I'm an educator in this system with a dark side administrator that has given me like some playground, like how do you get people into that mindset at your level? And when you're talking about like district and even building admin, what do you look for those great teammates, and how can you start to build that kind of quality of leadership in a school district? I don't know. I'm just going to throw that big question out there and see what you got.
Peter, I'm not sure I have an answer, but what I did is I just said, look, here's my vision. College isn't for everybody. Going into a career path, picking one thing and I'm just going to be, an auto mechanic isn't for everybody. We have lots of different things. So we also have to open our eyes up to what that is. And it starts with giving everybody some grace to say, look, this is not a top down, I'm telling you what to do, or it's a checkbox. We got to go through, I need this many math units. I need this many social studies units. You need to do these. Hey, we have a direction. The academy structure was there. And I was fortunate to move into that. But the picture is we want our kids to come out and we say college and career ready. What does that really look like and mean? And how do we take actionable steps to do this? Now, teachers, what are the skills and standards in your department and area? How do you make them meaningful? Not just, I don't care what math series or what, English book or, even what automotive text that you follow. What are the skills that you come out with? Teachers, this is what I want you to do. Admin, this is our direction as well. How can I help support you with this? And even people at my level we have conversation. I have a great team and they're all, they have the same thing. How do we make that well-rounded person? Let them, and it really comes back to how do we let the student try to become the best them that's possible? We shouldn't tell them what they should be doing. We should ask them what their skills and interests are, and then try to tailor something that maybe meets that. Maybe there's some guidance to be given, but it really is through conversation. We have weekly meetings from Teaching, Learning, and Equity. That's my department at the district level. We have weekly meetings with Beloit Memorial, with the administration there, and talk about that. I go to academy meetings when they have them, and so the teachers see me. My academy coach or the academy leads see me, and we talk about this. And I try to say, I'm giving you grace, as you said, Peter. It's a bit of a playground. How do you make this happen? Let's try something. I'm not bound to a checklist of just doing these things, because if you do them but you don't know why and there's not a purpose to doing them, it serves you no good. I mean, you have to have some direction to this, and I do think it's just that continued conversation, and you also have to walk the walk. I mean, it's taken me a few years, to say, here's where I'm at. Here's my philosophy. This is what I'm thinking. This is where I want to go with it. And I show up and I do it. The second day I was there up at the job, when I came way back in May of 2021, one of the teachers, is an impromptu meeting of my CT team. He says, "How long are you going to be here?" I said, "Do you mean for this meeting, or do you mean on the job?" He's like, "No, on the job." I said, "Okay, if you're asking me, this is my last stop in my career. I've got 10 years. I want to finish here." He says, "Right answer. Now prove it." Mm-hmm. I've been there 4. I'm starting my 5th. And those are the kind of things you can have that vision and talk about it, but you need people around you who are like-minded, or at least willing to, and try and open up. But then you have to be there and follow through with it consistently. And, I don't think I've changed my message. It doesn't make everybody always happy, because I push it a little bit. I don't know that I disrupt education, Peter. I adjust education. Maybe that's what I do.
There you go.
But it is. It's here's where I want to go. And I'm not doing it because I get paid more or I get any accolades. Mm-hmm. This is what's good for our kids. And people, if you're grounded in that, they do see it, and they want purpose. Teachers are most cases pleasers, but a lot of times it's been, you got to do this and you got to do this. And there hasn't been like a cohesive direction or structure to it. And that's what I'm hoping the academies have given the school. And then I'm just there to support, the great things that are happening. I said, I've got the right people, teachers, special educators, admin, my academy coach, my team at the district level even. And they have some trust in me to do it. So there's expectations, and you got to come through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I like that they wanted to know that you held a vision for longer than a couple of years, because I will say this work is not, I remember, I believe it was Scott Carr last year. He was like, most people want to do something in 100 days, and you got to add a 0 to that. It's like, you have to have the time to let something this big kind of grow, and also let it grow. I just think of you don't plant a tree in your yard for your benefit. It's for the next generation, and that sounds like the work that you're doing at Beloit right now. So with this work, there's people get caught in some pretty big barriers, right? And I'm sure your work has encountered some as well, probably getting the Academy model off the ground back in 2018. And then even when you came in 2021. So it's what's a barrier that your district and the work that you guys have done in what I would consider a more disruptive model of education, even if you don't think so.
Adjustment.
Yeah.
I like that.
That you overcome, that you were okay, this really opened the door. And for our listeners, that maybe they haven't yet crossed, that could be encouraging to them in this type of work, that looking back, you're like, wow, it feels good to be on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And it's opened so many doors.
Ellie, it's a great question. As I think about probably 2 different realms. Number one was those outside business partners that started to, they were part of the big, theoretical piece of this, and they realized they wanted to do something and help, and they weren't sure. But when the smaller pieces came available and they jumped in, and again, I'm going to credit Frito-Lay and Scott Forge, and they're just model ones. And we've got a couple other, really great, business partners with that, and Blackhawk Tech College as well. And how do we help out and do that? And I think that brought that barrier to, we can't put a 16, 17-year-old in a manufacturing place. They can't be with that equipment. Yes, they can. Okay, we're going to trust this 17-year-old and hire them on as a youth apprenticeship and have them come 450, 500 hours during the school year and work with us. Are we going to get a lot of productivity? Yeah. How did they pick their best mentors and put them with the people? And it's changed the mentors on the outside. But it took a few key people to start that momentum, and then it came along. And I would say the other piece of that really is, and I don't want to say it was me, but I think it was a concerted effort that we have a vertical structure that we meet, and we have this same vision. We have teachers who are academy leads so all teachers are in academy. Every teacher has an academy, but we have academy leads who they've designated who want to be a part of something. I have an academy coach, There's an assistant principal for each academy. There's a principal of the building. There's my teaching and learning and equity team, and my boss, who's the executive director. And having that up and down, that it's not just yours, it's not just mine. District isn't telling you, high school, you're not just doing something on your own, and we're not a part of it on the other side of it. And we're not just there to cash a check. We're there and we show up and we're a part of things and we participate. So I think those are two barriers to us. Is how do you get the outside people in to see this? There's trepidation of working with high school kids. Beloit didn't always have the greatest reputation, and we've heard it from some of our mentors. Ooh, I don't know about those kids from Beloit Memorial, and if they come here. And one of the mentors, he came, and after the first year of this Craftsman with Character program and youth apprenticeship, he said, "Boy, was I wrong. You have some amazing kids here." And I said, "I want you to tell that story to others," and they have. And so, we can lean on those business partners to be examples for others and hey, if you have a question, call them, talk to them, see what they do on the business side. Here's what we've learned on the inside, and we're trying to do this with our whole structure again, up and down. So it's not just one person's job. It truly is an hour. And I think those are the two biggest obstacles. We still have businesses who are reluctant. We still have some teachers who, all right, because it was sort of spinning its wheels for a while and not going anyplace. Is this just the next fad? Is it just going to go away? The pendulum swings, and sometimes, the pendulum of initiative swings a lot faster than real pendulums. It's like 3 years, and nothing ever takes hold. And so that, and we've also gone through, 15 superintendents in 18 years. I mean, there was a big turnover. And so, when I tell you I'm starting my 5th year, I'm a picture of longevity, which you need some dedicated people, committed people to be a part of that. So I think those are really the two big obstacles that have been, getting it to move forward internally, but then also the external piece of it.
Yeah. I love this. I wanted to kind of round out here a little bit. So you've got 6 years left. And before we go into what you want to see,
maybe 5, Peter.
7 years left. I'm going the other way because I want to keep people like you in this amazing system where we're changing, but I get it. So you got 5 years left. Coming into, your vision. I wanted to touch on something that we talked about right before. You got $100,000 grant on something new. I want you to share that if you don't mind, because I think people see when you start changing and doing some different things, you try things, and yes, you don't have to try them, with $100 million, 2, 4 students, 12 students, and then you build it, and then people start to notice, and then the money will come and say, oh, Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come, which is happening. So I want you to share that. And then my follow-up question is going to be what in 5 years do you want to accomplish before you take off and start teaching admin, which I'm going to force you to do.
Yeah. So Peter, thanks for picking my post-career career. I appreciate that. So talk about the grant. We just, with a business partner that we have, my welding teacher, he had this thought again. I recognize when I have great people, my welding teacher, he's one of my rock star teachers. Hey, I'd like to do this. It'd be really cool to do some automated production. And so that started the thought to it, and then wrote this grant, and it's for $100,000 plus robotic welding arm. And we've got some other end-of-end arm toolings that we're at the same time can benefit our CNC classes about some other robotics that are there too. Now with that comes certifications. And again, so those certifications, Wisconsin has the industry recognized credential certification program. So if you're in high level certifications, when the senior graduates, we can get some money back from them. We have an outstanding education program that does that, and they get a lot through the state. Early childhood education, infant, toddler. I've got a pretty robust, fairly robust youth apprenticeship program. We get money for that. Last year my ASE certifications for my auto shop, I had his autos 3 classes. So this is only his 3rd year of rebuilding an autos program. That started from nothing. He had 8 kids, and 5 of them earned at least 5 out of the 8 ASE certifications, plus a couple others. And so it's always that, okay, what can we deliver to those kids? And that brings the funds back to it. But again, it is starting small. It is moving forward and say, okay, what do I do? And that allows me to buy them state-of-the-art equipment, piece of equipment that allow for greater certifications. So you get to keep on building, but it was starting small and realizing what are those incremental steps. And not just next year. This welding cell, they have to build it for us. It doesn't get delivered till winterish time. There's training that goes on. We won't implement it till next year. And that's an okay time period. That, the grant period ends in 2027. So, when we get there, now the expectation is now we've ramped it up and we're doing something with it. And that's kind of where it's at. It's laying out that picture of how do we get from where we are now to, not just this year. What about next year? How do we start something so that next year we're ready to put it into phase 2? Phase 2 might be where it becomes a real class. Phase 2 might be where we actually have certifications, because a teacher has to be certified along the way to be giving certifications as well. And so, but it's supporting all of those things with that picture, and just keep asking, well, what's next? What's next? What's next? So then, what is next? My vision is 5 years, Peter. 5. I want academies to be just the way of doing things. When we went on an academy visit, one of the other people asked the kids at the academy school, well, what do you think about this schedule compared to, and they had a B block schedule to a full day, 8-day period, 8-period day. What do you get with that? Mm-hmm. And one of the teachers says, they don't know anything any differently. They've only had this schedule. And I want that to be the experience of when the academies get done. I know that I belong to academy. I want a kid who's in the Bach Academy to look at a kid who's in the Hess Academy who they know and saying, wait a minute, what are you doing on our part of the building? That's ownership territorially. We branded last year. We bought T-shirts for all the teachers by their academy, so they all have that. This year, we're going to buy T-shirts for all the 10th through 12th graders by their academy. We've done some branding in the hallways. We want them to be so all Hess is, and it's HHES. It's a red color. We want all the banners outside the teachers' walls, everything else to be red. We want to paint that hallway red, the lockers red. So we want some ownership territorially, basically logistically. But then there starts to become that feeling of, we're going to do graduation by academies. We want to recognize kids. So kind of like you do in college, the School of Education, the School of Business. Mm-hmm. We want to graduate them that way and recognize pathway completers. We've changed policy this year so that in the graduation recognition, that if you are a pathway completer, or if you take a dual credit or credentialing or AP classes, again, we're not forgetting about college bound. That's not, mm-hmm. This is all entwined. You can mm-hmm. do all of these together. And so we put that into policy for our graduation requirement. It's still in policy right now, but we've talked about weighted grades. Weighted grades have been on the policy books for a while. Nothing's ever happened for it. We went this year to do this. Weighted grades will affect if you take automotive 1 and that's good for brake service 1 credit at Blackhawk Tech College. That's a weighted grade. And we're going to acknowledge those. So it's not just AP. It's not class at a 4-year institution. It is any higher learning. And we've said, so again, we've put this into work into policy. My TLE team, Beloit Memorial High School administration, we are all in this together. How do we build this system? And so when I get done in 5 years, I want the academies just to be the way that it is. I want these policy to be taken hold. Our kids have started a portfolio piece. So in 4 years, they'll have gone through the whole thing. So they'll have the first full portfolios. Mm-hmm. But then on the other side, it bleeds down into my middle schools because it has to be there. And Peter, I talked to you a little bit, but where I've incorporated a couple of career field trips, and we had a career fair for our middle schools. And this is where I did disrupt things, Peter. As I told you, I told my middle school principals, here's what I'm planning. This is the day that's going to be. It is going to disrupt your day. And I don't care because this is what we're going to do. Now, they were in agreement with me. Alli, I say this. We had talked about this, and they're like, yeah, bring it on. And their staff members said, oh yeah, this is going to be a pain. We got to figure it out. But they had enough leeway, of time up front, and they saw the benefit for our kids. Mm-hmm. Now, I can't be doing that all the time, but we have to start someplace, and we have to get that, because we can't wait until they're freshmen for them to start figuring this out. We need to start exposing that. I've told the elementary schools, we're going to do a couple of career things that are related to this. Let's do the truck of the month club and figure out, okay, go outside, take a look at what trucks you see. I see an Amazon truck. I see a garbage truck. I see a semi that goes by. I see, Joe's snow plowing and lawn service. I see the Brinks armored car go by. Okay, what are those jobs? What do they do? Right in your community. And it's that simple, but it's starting it down. So Peter, when I leave, I want some exposure at K through 5. I want 6 through 8 to have a little bit more direction and focus, finding out who they are and their interests. So when they get to high school, we want them to take those upper level classes, have youth apprenticeship opportunities as a senior. You can't decide that at 10th grade. That's got to be set forth a little bit earlier than that, about the opportunity. And that, that's sort of where I want to go with it. And, 5 years. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it there.
I'll
Peter.
give you 5 years. No more, no less.
Feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What final thoughts do you have, Alli? There's a lot here, and I know we'll unpack on the next episode after
my
this because
gosh.
Jeff, you're just amazing, man.
So much. I wanted to pull a quote from, it was the article you shared with us that'll be in the show notes, but because it's like everything you've been talking about. So, the work that you're doing, this is what it says. It says, being with others who hold a shared vision of needing to alter, change, challenge the traditional world of education is motivational. It's reassuring that others are in the same mind frame and are working on similar things within their own sphere of influence. And I feel like that encapsulates so much of the work that you're doing, is you're taking the community that you have in your sphere of influence and getting people on board. Like, I feel like at the director level, you have to be able to like see your people, see their strengths. And then I know I actually loved my director, that I worked with the most on the district level for a pretty big district. She was all about making what I wanted to do in the classroom happen. Right. And so it's like, you seem to really embody that at a big level. And that's how school districts can really change. I love that you said the vertical alignment, the shared vision, because without that, I don't think any of this comes together. And so, right, for everyone listening to this episode, I think, don't waste time getting that vertical alignment. Don't delay the project, but see how powerful that vertical alignment can make moves in your community. And this is just such a cool picture of a community that is if you haven't driven through Beloit, Wisconsin, and the interchanges there, they are growing. It's a big area now.
There's still construction there. I'm telling
Oh
you.
yeah,
I just went through it.
Yeah, we have a casino and a conference center going there, and we're actually looking at hooking up with the Ho Chunk Nation and what they're doing to try to get involved in their project. And Alli, one thing that you just mentioned there, and it is really quick, to empower my teachers, look outside of your world. Education and know your spot, but you don't know everything that's out there. I encourage them to field trips, experiences, and that also opened up businesses. Let's start there. And then I funded them. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make this a deliberate attempt. And so the first year I came, I don't know, I probably spent $1,500 or so sponsoring field trips. Last year, I bet you it was probably close to $8,000 or $9,000 in field trips, because it's that important for our kids to get out, and that opens up those partners. And we have great community members. Like I said, in that article, CCI, Visit Beloit, our marketing for our Beloit company, just what tourism that's there. It's our Greater Beloit Economic Development Corporation, but it's reaching those partners. So I can't take credit for all the things. I've got great folks. I've got great business partners. Brian Michaels, my right-hand man at the high school, is a career coach. He does most of the legwork. And I'm just like, yeah, great idea. Yeah, we're great. What do you need to do that? What do you need to do that? So, I support the disruptors. I'm doing the adjusting on my end.
That's what I love about it. And so you go to other academies. I'm going to guess after this, maybe some people are going to be calling you and saying, hey, how can we see Beloit? How can we connect with Jeff? So if you don't mind, how can people see what's going on, and how can they connect with you and or your team you're modeling, and now the tide's turning. People are going to start coming to you.
Yeah. And Peter, that's a great thing. We want to tell our story because we have a lot of great things that are happening. The Craftsman with Character program, what started with a multiple business kind of thing, then the U.S. Navy got a hold of it and said, wait a minute, because we have, Fairbanks Morse Defense, who makes, government contracts. They're like, we want to fund this. And so they funded and helped Dave Haytag up at Edgerton Gear with Craftsman with Character to bring this to around the country. And so they have now. We have the same sort of thing. We realize, please contact me. Contact the School District of Beloit. If you go on the website, I'm under the district administration. Brian Michaels, who's a career academy coach at Beloit Memorial High School. We're a one high school district. We have an alternative. I take that back. We have two high schools. We have my traditional high school. We have my alternative high school. I always say that we have two high schools. And the other thing is our alternative high school kids can participate in our CTE classes and be a part of that and earn credentialing. It's not the academies are at Beloit Memorial, but the alternative school students can be a part of that. But yeah, please reach out. We are more than happy to share our story. We don't We don't have everything right. But we've come a long way. We have some growing pains. We still ask questions. We reach out to our Academy families through the Florida NGL network. How do we learn from them? So it truly is about, it's good for kids. Why do we not share that with everybody along the way? And again, it doesn't have to be exactly what we have, but don't be in the mindset of doing it one way or one other way. That it's a realm of everything. Life doesn't come with a book that says you need to fit here, you need to fit here. It just happens. So how do we tap into what kids want to do, what they're interested in? How do we better prepare them to follow that and be the best them that they can be?
Love that. And that's a great message to our listeners as well, amplifying it a little bit more. And I'm so glad we had this, this time to conversate and get you on the podcast. I mean, we crossed paths. You never know who you're going to meet at a lot of conferences. And we had a great conversation there. And Scott Carr and Christy Valesky was there. Alli, you got to get there to the Dells next year. We got to see some more, but Jeff, I can't thank you enough for number one, just being that leader that adjusts. We'll give you that education to make it more purposeful and more experiential for our youth and our educators, which is important as well, and bringing communities together. And thank you for sharing your story today on the Disrupt Education podcast, man. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, Peter and Alli, thank you so much. I love what I do. And you say that it's my passion, and glad to share the story. And I appreciate the invite to be a part of this.
100%. And thank you all for hanging out with us today. Take a look at the school district of Beloit, the high school, and everything that Jeff is doing and his team. For Alli Dahl, I'm Peter Hostrawser. We'll catch you next time on the Disrupt Education podcast. Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you for joining us on the Disrupt Education podcast. If you found today's conversation valuable, we'd appreciate it if you subscribed and shared it with someone on their own learning journey. We're also excited to announce our new career coaching services, where you can work directly with Peter and Alli to clarify your path and showcase your unique value. Visit disrupteducationpodcast.com to learn more. Until next time, keep questioning, keep growing, and keep disrupting education.